That you, Vern?
Yeah, let me put my mute on. Yeah, let me turn this down. I'm sorry.
Did it go live? Yeah. Good evening. I'm Jerry McIntosh, and this is Our Voices, the People's Media. Tonight, we're going to address what Mitch McConnell said, that Black folks vote, our African American vote at the same level as Americans. Let that sink in for a minute. First, but we're going to go to our host, Mr. Bill Snow, who is the author of the great book, From the Project to the Boardroom. We have also Dr. Isaac Williams, who is the pastor of Greater True Vine Baptist Church and also the moderator for this area. Mr. Vernon Watson, who is the owner of WBQP TV, channel 12.1, which you will be watching tonight on, and Roku, Fire Stick, and YouTube. Have Mr. Grover Brown, who he's going to tell you some of the things he do because I didn't have it written down. So we're going to talk about that, and he's going to tell you exactly what he do. But we're going to get started. What y'all think about what Mitch McConnell said? As far as the African, he said African Americans vote at the same, I guess the same amount as Americans. What was he talking about? Vern, what you think he was talking about?
Jerry, you know what he was talking about. They never seen Black folks in this country as Americans. And to Mitch McConnell and folks like Mitch McConnell, they see Americans as white people, okay? That's what this crap about, we're gonna take our country back and all that kind of stuff, as though we don't exist in this country. We just visitors, and we just be privileged to be here with them. No, Jerry, that's it was a fraudulent slip, but that's the mentality of it.
Out of the abundance of the heart does the mouth speak. What's in you, the old folk, now I'm old, but the old folk, you say, what's in you coming out. It just, that's what they consider a slip, a muted point. He forgot which circle he you know what? At his age, he forgot where he was and who he was talking to. He thought he was amongst the good old boy network. So that's how they talk, and that's what actually came out.
I've been trying to tell people for the longest that Brown versus the Board of Education never overturned the decision that was made by under the Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott decision said that, a Black man has no right that a white man must respect. And so it's now coming out in the wash. When you see what Trump, all of the places that they filed suits, and Grover, you can jump in on this, all the places that they filed suit was in the where Black people live, the majority of Black people live, whether it was in Atlanta, Wisconsin, Philadelphia, all of these places in the major cities. And that's what Trump called Stop the Steal. Go ahead, Grover.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're referring to all the voter fraud cases that his team filed right after the election. And pretty much they have basically indicted Democratic ran cities. We all know that the large African American votes are contained in the large urban areas along the Northeast corridor, as well as throughout the South, Atlanta, Chicago, and those areas, and Georgia particularly, which had a tremendous output of African Americans going to the polls. I guess you can tell a tree by the fruit it bears. And when it comes to McConnell and his track record regarding things of the African American community, the influence he's had, the things that have happened, I tend to not expect a whole lot. And so when it happened, I just, shook my head and of course I know, these dog whistles that come up, these other things that are said. I tend not to. I'm not going to put a lot of value into it, mainly because I don't have time, and so because I mean his record speaks for itself, and especially at this time when there are so many that are attempting to limit voting. Too many state legislatures are filing bills that will limit access to the poll, and the fact that no Republican stood up and supported the John Lewis Voting Act. So that speaks for itself, and it's right there. That's me.
Right. And I think one of the things that's being done is they are being let off the hook in many instances because they should be held just as much accountable as Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, because I know they're not going to do anything, but then there should be ads run against them on everything.
And Jared,
go ahead, Vern.
I too agree with you, and Grover, I got to disagree with you because the sentiment I think you just expressed is the sentiment that a lot of them do. I don't put any stock in it. I'm just going to overlook it and that kind of stuff. We need to address it. I mean, I'm sorry, but we need when he makes stupid ass comments like that, and we just accept it, and like with many others do the same thing on the right. They make these crazy comments, and then we just whitewash it. And we just accept and said, okay, that's them. I'm not going to get down in the gully with them. I think we're going to have to do that. I think we have to respond in kind to those kinds of comments, those kinds of sentiments. We just cannot allow this to continue without saying something. We got to make a stand in one way or the other. That's my
Dr.
opinion.
William, yeah, Dr. William, what's your opinion on what Mitch McConnell said about you colored people?
You people.
You people.
Jerry, and to all our hearts this evening. We're in a vicious cycle and that started with the Atlantic trade route when they was bringing our ancestors out of Africa to these shores. And when they talk about this thing called a constitution, when they wrote it, we were just 3/5 of a person. How? And you have to think of the deprived mindset of these white folk who can see a person as somewhat 2/5 less human. 2/5 of that person is not human. So your humanity is mingled with, I don't know what they want to call you. If we were only 3/5 of a person, that means 2/5 was not human. And so since that very day, African Americans, they've given us every name you can think of. One of the books when I was in TBS, the Officer Training School, they require us to read a book about the Civil War. And in the Civil War, the Southern generals who they could have won that war. If a person is a history buff, the reason they lost that war, a lot of people never took a deep dive, is that he had 3 regiments and that they wouldn't do what the commanding general told them to do. And they were loose cannon. If they had not been loose cannon, the Civil War probably would have been won by the South. but I believe it was providence by God that they did what they did. Is because this one general, I forget his name, he had took all of his troops and they had went downtown getting drunk, partying, hanging out with the girls of the street when they supposed to have been out scouting, getting ready. Another one, he engaged in the battle before the reinforcement got there. They had the stronger forces at the time, but it just came up. But the point I was saying in that book, they constantly referred to people of color as them rats. They call us rats. They saw us as not humans, but rats.
Doc, that's where I think I agree with you. The part I don't agree with you on is about the 3/5 of a man part. Okay.
Okay.
They never viewed us in terms of human beings. Period.
Right.
Even I think even up to this day, the 3/5 theory came about because the South wanted voting rights.
Voting.
They wanted
Yeah,
so they wanted that they didn't want to count them as a full man, but they wanted because so many black folks in the South, so many slaves in the South would outnumbered the whites in the South, and they only wanted that 3/5 of a man votes to get voting privileges, and just like always, we have been always used and abused throughout the century.
It was about resources as well with that 3/5. You know, if the however many people you got in that area, you can get Congress people and all of that, and representation. But what Mitch McConnell did is brought us back to, like you say, you know, and this is where they're trying to take us back to. Is this right after the Civil War and Reconstruction and all of that? That's where they are trying to take us back to. And this is what Trump opened the floodgate for, that mentality. But as if we are not going to defend ourselves against this you know, this crap that they are putting up, you know, that we're going to automatically walk back into, you know, into slavery, or, you know, that we're not going to defend what we think is supposed to be our right as a people that live here and that was living here before most of these people ever got here.
And I want to pick up on what
Vernon
said. But Vernon was very astute in where I was going. I didn't quite connect back where I was going. This 3/5 of a person was all about voting. And that's what Mitch McConnell is talking about. That, listen, we are allowing Black folk to vote at the same rate as Americans. Notice, we are still in their eyesight 3/5. Y'all, you see what I'm saying? When it comes to if we're going to have voting rights, and so as soon as they passed the 14th and the 15th Amendment, giving Blacks the right to vote, then they came up with Reconstruction. They started all the Jim Crow laws. Once again, you can vote, but you got to speak Chinese. You can vote, but you got to pay a poll tax. You can vote, but you got to walk 15 miles in the rain, in the snow. You can vote, but we gonna beat you. We gonna put the police on the state trooper, let them beat you with clubs for you trying to get in line. If you go sit to a camera. So my point is this: this is nothing new for us. We try to look out of rose-colored glasses, but one of the great person who set our time back in my lifetime. Well, you know, I'm born in the 50s, but 1980, I think it was 81 when Reagan got elected to be president of the United States. Reagan turned back the clock so far on people of color that we won't recover in my lifetime. And now he is seen as a liberal Republican. So you can imagine the quality that going on with these conservative Republicans that's off. So what begins? But one thing that I want to share to my listening officers, my listening audience, Black folks ain't never been afraid of a good fight.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah,
Hey,
you were about to say something, Grove. You on?
Okay, all right. Hey,
You on
Shirley
me?
Baker on the. Go ahead, Grover.
Well, I guess, for me, the fight, I understand the struggle, I understand the fight. But one of the key things is understanding rhetoric. And there's rhetoric that inflames, rhetoric that pretty much that comes out. And basically it don't tell us nothing new. It don't tell us anything else. The fight is, how do we continue? How do we put a clamp on this, these attempts to downsize voting rights? How do we put a clamp on the whole entire system that is pretty much edging and pushing us out? I would rather us get irate, upset, and mad about the things to roll back our access to the polls, as opposed to what Mitch McConnell's saying, because they're going to say that, they're going to speak that, they're going to do that, but the action, the policies, the fact that there are no Republicans who will stand and say, hey, I'm for expanding, ensuring that everybody in this country get the same equal right to vote. That is inflaming.
Has
They-
that
they
ever
are
been the
actually-
case in America, though? Has that ever?
They
When has white folks stood up for us in large number in our struggle? It only been a small percentage, and to those I tilt my head to. I love my white brothers and sisters who've been in struggle, but King argument was, my problem is that one day I'm not gonna be so angry about what my enemy did, but the people who's supposed to be with me did not do. What?
Well,
these people ought to get in
Well,
the
hold on,
struggle
wait.
with
Well,
us.
let me. I wasn't talking about the people in the struggle with us. I'm
Okay.
talking about us and our struggle.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about us and our struggle, and that's what I mean. Stay focused, and do more to ensure that we're addressing the issues that are critical to us moving forward, to
They're
us
one
resolving.
lane.
Grover, one of the things you said about rhetoric, what should we do? What should we be doing? One of the things I kind of reflect on, I'm with Dr. King's movement, and from 1955 until 1965, there was, because of his approach, nothing was wrong with it, but not a heck of a lot got accomplished in that 10 years. Okay, from 1965 to 1968, we made a lot more progress. After 1968, we made a lot more progress in that 3 years. And the reason I feel that we made that progress, from 1955 to 1965, there was a sentiment of just non-violent movement. Don't fight back. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just take it and take it. In 1965, when they start rioting and tearing this damn country apart, from 1965 to 1967, and then you saw some real action behind it. We got affirmative action. We got integration to school. We got a lot of things accomplished in those 3 years, because folks saw that we wasn't going to sit back and take it. And that's what I think the Democrat Party is doing today. We're just sitting back non-violently, and I'm nothing wrong with that. But sometimes, I heard some of those theologians saying something about prayers not, you can pray all you want, faith is nothing without action, or something to that.
Faith without works is dead.
Okay, that's what I'm going with. What can we do to further this movement, rather than just rhetoric, rather than just talking about what happened and talk about what Mitch McConnell doing? We got to do something about that, what he's doing.
Hey,
Okay?
Shirley
What he's
Baker
saying.
on our live Facebook stream speaking on Mitch McConnell's comments says it's overt racism. But Calvin Brothers out of Jacksonville, Florida weighs in and says, yes, something needs to be said, but more so something has to be done. I believe there needs to be a mass boycott of enormous proportion. I'm talking about across the board, Africans, Americans, and others of other nationalities and races across this country and around the world literally needs to come together in unity and boycott. Now, boycott, and King talked about that. That's the language they definitely understand. But Calvin Brother goes on to say, you see where Ron DeSantis is trying to change the congressional map, and he did it right as we celebrated Dr. King. Now the Republicans are claiming white people are being discriminated against, and these COVID protocols is ridiculous. The one thing they will understand is boycott. And that just happened to be a friend of mine who happens to be white. He goes on to say that is right. There's supposed to be millions of white people who can't stand what has happened for African American people, but their voice is silent. Even in the church, in most of your predominantly white ministries, they do not speak out against racism. Calvin,
That sounds like when King was speaking from the Birmingham jail, right? You know, when he talked about that. One of the things Kwame Ture said, he said, one of the greatest things that King ever did was got people to raise their head up and to stand up and face people face to face. That was powerful to me, because when you think about it, you think about all the things that he did, but the thing that he did the most, that was most effective to Black people and what it did to the psyche of Black people, is they raised their head up and straightened up their backs and confronted that issue. And that's what I think. And Bernie, you was asking what we're gonna have to do about it. We're gonna have to confront this thing, I believe, on two fronts: boycott, voting.
Right.
And put, you know, we got to confront it from the local level up. It's something that we had not focused on before. We got to start it from the school board all the way to the state house to DC. And that's what we have. I think we lost our chance to do that in 2010 when we took for granted that you know, we were going to get these congressional seats back. We were going to get the Senate back. We were going to get these state legislative seats. And we sit back salivating over President Obama and then get out and vote. And the Democrat Party, I believe, and this is just me, did a disservice to him, because they didn't push voting in 2010, which was an off year. The way it should have been done. And I think that's one of the reasons that we lost so many congressional seats at that time, and why we have lost about, I believe, Grover, is around 1,500 seats that we lost in state legislators around the country.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
Around that number.
Yeah.
Hold
on, Heights. Go ahead.
But we go back to
yeah, I can hear you. Go. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
Go.
If we go back to what Vernon said,
on the subject of what to do, that Vernon brought up and that Dr. Williams brought up, the Congress. I mean, isn't that really a very, very important part of what needs to be done, that we turn to Congress? I mean, because that's where the laws come from. And so, I mean, so more of a question than a comment.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can y'all hear him?
Not really.
Yes, we hear.
Can you?
Some of them can't hear you, some can't. But what he was asking is, shouldn't we be looking to Congress to change to make sure that we?
No, shouldn't we turn Congress? Isn't that really where we need to put a lot of time and energy?
Oh yeah, should we turn Congress? In other words, elect more people to Congress and to the Senate. That's what we
should be putting a lot of time and energy.
And I agree with you. We should be putting a lot of time and energy, but I think we have to also put a lot of time and energy at the local level and the state level and these state legislators, because they the one to redraw the districts that's in every state. And so those are the states that, in the states where the Republicans own the legislation, they're the one that's redrawing all the district, and that's devastating power, because they're trying to draw out all the black districts around the country.
I want to suggest that what we can do, and this is not easy.
Yeah, that's what I need to hear.
Okay.
But this will work. I've chaired campaigns for school board, and what I found out, and we brush over it, is that in our community, somewhere about 50% of eligible voters will not vote. We got enough. I don't care how many rules they got on the book trying to stop us right now. If we can get that magic wand and help them deal with the great dichotomy that Dr. King said at his speech in DC. He says, when the Negro in the South don't have the capability to vote, the Negro in the North in New York think they has no reason to vote. We got a problem. When you go out and try to get a lot of people to vote, they say, what I'm voting for? They don't understand how when you vote, you get people in office who are going to determine how the revenues that you come from taxes going to be spent. They put right now, have you ever noticed that the black on black crimes, they ain't happening in white neighborhoods because they got the resources there to make sure you ain't coming up in there. But they let our neighborhood go unprotected till somebody gets shot, get killed. They pull the resources, so the people there, they fighting over the same thing, out there selling dope, doing stupid stuff, when if we had the ability to put the resources in our community, we can make it better. So I suggest, now it's not popular, that we be prayerful, we be patient, we be persistent, but we be prepared to find out what it takes to motivate our people to get back to the poll. And I think if we go there, we got enough, because notice gerrymandering. I don't know about you all, but they just put me in another district the other day. Anybody get a new postcard saying, welcome to my district? They moved where I live into District 3. Now, I was in District 1, but too many black folks are getting into District 1, so they taking us and they putting us over in the Commissioner May. So all of us being there together. So Commissioner May, I might announce my candidacy. I'm joking, y'all. I don't want nobody to come shooting at me. No. But on a serious note, notice how they gerrymandering. They are putting all of us in one little bucket so we can't change their vote.
Right.
Because they have the power to draw their redistricting.
Well, I think one of the things with that, if I followed, I briefly sketched over and read what was happening with county commission districts here, was the fact that District 3, the dynamics of it have changed. If you look at downtown, you look at traditional areas that were African-American Black, they've been gentrified. So they had to move around to maintain a balance. So you were put over into Commissioner May's district. But one of the things, we got to look at the most effective model, I think, that has occurred in the past 20, 30 years for voting. And that is what Georgia did with Stacey Abrams. That get out the vote, that motivation, that sequence of getting people to the polls that went beyond class, that went beyond strata, that took those people that needed to go vote to vote, that made them, that reached them, that got the message out there. That's the most important thing. Using this technology, using the everyday things now that were not everyday things back in '68, using those things to reach people and to begin to get them to understand the importance of going to the poll. Because it's something to say that you have a Black senator from the South.
Right.
That I'm a political science major, and I follow politics, and economics, religion, and everything else. But to say that you have, after Reconstruction, after Jim Crow, you have a senator, a Black senator in the U.S. Senate that won because of some major mobilization that took place. We need major mobilization. We need major mobilization here in Northwest Florida.
You do know this though. They are passing a law. They probably have already passed it, but I think they're going to tighten that law up, that you can't get outside money and outside support to come into the state of Florida. That's going to be criminal. Like, we trying to bring Stacey Abrams down in here to get with us, or these other organizations that got money that putting in the voting, they passing a law making that illegal. So the strategy they got, if we're going to use her strategy, we got to go there. She ain't gonna be able to be coming up here doing. And so everything that we as a people try to do to motivate the people and everything to get them out, if they can put a stumbling block, they put it in our way. And I agree with Brother Vernon. Yet faith without works, you might as well say you don't have it. It's there. So this is what I believe we ought to do here. We need to come together. I mean, all of us, all the Black people and our friends who are white. Because I met a white friend today. I was in a very strange place to meet this person. but you got some good loving white people, but you got a whole lot of them ain't good. But when you meet a good one, dog, it keeps changing my mind because I love people. But I hate to see, especially my Christian brothers and sisters across the aisle who are so silent with all this stuff going on.
Christians.
Yeah, a so-called Christian, it bothers me. It almost challenged my faith in them to the point where James Cone said he's not sure that they can make it to heaven.
You're in the right place and you're on the right track. We do have genuine people of goodwill of other races, and namely my brother Calvin Brothers, who is on our stream tonight from Jacksonville, Florida. But for the most part, Dr. Williams, though there are some wicked folks that wear that Caucasian skin, and I call them nothing short of the devil.
One of the things I believe with the most white people, I believe most white people in this country are good folks. I believe we got what we call the silent majority. They just silent right now. You know, they're only the minority, the few cooks out there are getting the megaphone. Yeah. But I believe, and because nobody, it's just like Doc said, Doc Williams just said a while ago about the letter from Dr. King in his letter from the Birmingham jail. I believe Jerry mentioned that we got good people, goodwill, but nobody wants to sit there and take the first step. You know, when they're forced to do it, then it's going to be okay. But I believe that it's only we're letting the minority voices of this country controlling the majority. And so if we need to really think about it. Most folks, I believe most white folks in this country are people of goodwill, and they want to do the right thing. And that's why the small majority like Governor DeSantis, okay, trying to pass laws, and all these folks around the country trying to pass these critical race theory laws, because they don't want white people to know the real history of this country. Because if they knew what the real history of this country is, they're gonna wake up. Somebody say, "Woke." The woke is for the white people. You don't want to wake them up, okay? When you wake them up, then they might start feeling guilty about what's going on and may want to do the right thing. They don't want white people to wake up and learn their history and feel guilty about it, because guilt has a tendency to make you do the right thing sometimes. And that's what I believe. And I believe that when it is, the truth is out there, the majority of these country, white people in this country, I think the majority of the white people in this country are good folks. They're not kooks.
I beg to differ.
Some of the minority thinking of this country. That's my opinion.
I beg to differ on you calling the majority of white folk in this country good folks. That's one of our problems, and the reason why we can't win is because we're afraid to call a spade, and we're afraid to call them out on truth. Jesus was talking to his disciples before he went to the cross the night before. He said, "I have chosen you, 12, and one of you is the devil." We're afraid to call the devil, and most white folk in this country are not genuine good people.
Brother
yes,
Snow,
we do have white folk that are of genuine goodwill, but to say that most of them are, I think, is an outright travesty, and it cannot fly.
Brother Snow, I disagree.
We're gonna have to move on, y'all, to the next topic.
Okay.
Let me say this. You know, one of the things that Dr. King talked about, you know, he talked about the appalling silence of the good people.
Yeah.
You know, you were complicit if you are not saying anything.
Right. They're not evil, they just complicit.
Yeah, you're complicit in what's going on.
Jerry, look how many people Caucasian came out and voted in order for the brother in Georgia to win. That brother didn't win because of black folks alone. He had a whole lot of white folks who, if Biden didn't win the president because of black folks, in fact,
right?
Do you guys have any idea why they do not want CRT taught in our schools? Do you all have any idea who does not want CRT taught in our schools? Why? Because of the viciousness that has been perpetrated on people of color for some over 400 years. And they don't want the world to know that who they really are.
I agree with that.
Let me move to Heisem. You was about to say something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say something in response to Vernon. I think what Vernon said in regards to people, whether they're good people or bad people. Because a lot of times Dr. King said many times, we judge people by the content they carry. So it's going to come down to that. It won't be in my lifetime, but at some point in the future, it's going to be about the content of your character, not the color of your skin. That's just the way it's going to happen. But let's not get too far off of Stacey Abrams. Maybe she can't come down here, but so we can emulate what was done up there. Yeah. And just as a group of people, we got to start doing that. We got to start imitating or emulating the good and the effective things that people do in other parts of the country. We can't be egocentric about this. And some of us are like that. Some of us we don't want to do nothing we saw somebody else do. Even if it's for our own betterment. If it ain't us, if it wasn't our idea, we don't want to be bothered with it. That's and also about the race. What's the name of it? Race theory or whatever. Yeah. What they're basically saying is that they don't want history taught, because now what's going to happen is if history gets taught, guess what's going to pass? Reparations. Reparations going to pass if we get into a lot of detail about what was done to our ancestors. So that's all I have right now.
All right. We're going to move to the next topic. DeSantis is proposing the creation of Office of Election Crime and Security. He asked lawmakers in Florida to allocate $6 million for the agency. He said Florida, this dude is trying to go blown dictatorship for election police to intimidate you at the poll. But just before we get there, Stacey Abrams now, you can bring Stacey Abrams to Florida. She can go anywhere she wants to. She can go anywhere she wants to, and she can speak on all of the issues and what they did in Georgia. So we want to make sure that people don't misunderstand that it's no limit on where she can go, because she's, and if we want her here, we can bring her here and have her to speak on how she did it, how they did it, because it was more than her. She's the figurehead there, but it's all kinds of, you got the LaTosha Browns and all of them there are in Georgia. Albright and all of them. Albright.
They can come, but they got to be very careful about the legality come in when they start talking about funding. Funding, if that's the part where we need to get that bill and bring it on here and discuss, because you see, they often know bills, the devil will be found in the details. They don't want no outside money or influence. Notice the term they use. That's a broad term. They don't want outside money or influence. Let me pull, well, I don't know, I'm not going to take over the show, but I want to get that bill and we'll discuss it, what they are preparing to make law, so that it won't catch us off guard when they're doing it. You know what I'm saying? They don't mind trying to make Stacey Abrams a criminal to keep her from where she's trying to go. You see what I'm saying? If they can bring a charge on her, that's how they do black folk. They just want to take your right to vote by making you a felon. They don't
That's
care
how
what the
hoodoo
felon is.
black folk. That's how hoodoo black folk. The devil.
Hey, Grover,
Hey, Jerry, I want to get back.
let me let Grover go ahead.
Well, two things. And I'm sincere about this because number one, I'm not trying to drag us back. Number one, to categorically put a group of people, a race of people,
Yeah.
into any position is totally wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's the same thing can be put into, say, about African Americans. And we all know that they're good people, they're bad people.
I agree.
And I stand on the content of character. I refuse to believe that everybody in this world who may not look like me is wrong. And that's not the case.
Same here.
My neighbors are white and black, and they're my neighbors. If I went to them in need, I'm sure they'll open their door for me just as well as I would open mine for them. But the second thing is, throughout this challenge, throughout this journey, throughout where we are, we've had obstacles. Since African Americans have been in this nation, we've had obstacles. When we've hurdled over some, they've created others. Obstacles are nothing new. And we have to understand that if they're going to prevent outside influence, that same law that will work against us will also work against them, because they depend upon outside dollars to come in to help finance campaigns and elections.
Brother Grover, those same neighbors that you speak so highly of, when they hand you a drink of water out that door, it's going to be in a cup, my friend. They consider you 3/5. No, I'm not saying all white folk are evil. And
no. Hold up, bro Snow. Hold up. Wait a minute. Let me finish. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I understand the hurt. I understand the issues of hate, clearly. Okay. But what I was saying is we can't go back and change nothing of the past. And we can't carry that hate with us. Now, if we go back and do our research, there are those who made sure, who didn't look like us, who made sure that the civil rights movement was financed. All of the money didn't come from Brother Gaston up in Birmingham. Matter of fact, they created a 501c3 that was in Nashville that became the clearinghouse of many of the philanthropies, philanthropic organizations and millionaires in New York and throughout the East as well as the West, who would send the money to the South to help change things. It's about creating alliances. It's about creating coalitions. It's about standing with others who are willing to stand with you.
I'm with you 100% on everything you just said. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think that they as a whole are the devil, but if you got into just a small portion of what they do not want taught in our schools, I think we will understand what I am attempting to say a whole lot better. You judge a man by the content of his character and his actions, and the actions of these 400 years, as brutal as they have been, and now all of a sudden we want to just erase it and say, let's move forward. But truth must be told. Our best interest in what we black people, people of color, are fighting for a democracy, something the founding fathers of a different breed wrote and said was to be. And
We've
here
always
we
fought
are
for it.
in 2022.
We've always fought for it. We've always fought for it.
Absolutely.
But we've always fought for it.
And we will continue to fight.
But here's the thing. If you go look in the bill, if you look at the bill, read the bill that's being proposed. What is it? Senate Bill 2022. Read the bill. And the bill carves out in November a week to commemorate the Holocaust. But then it moves after that and it comes to the African American portion. And it tells what we should look at, what should be taught, but there's no commemoration. There's no commemoration of the Middle Passage. There's no commemorations of the contributions to Africa.
The
These-
blacks that were lost in the
The
Holocaust.
blacks that were lost, the brutality of slavery. I've looked at all that. I see none of that is there. None of that is there upon that, on that particular bill. So we see and we clearly understand that the bill itself is a limiting device. It's a limiting device to understanding the history of African American, as Brother Watson says, if you teach it and it's taught right, it brings about empathy. It brings about feelings of guilt, and then there's a possibility of moving forward. But let me get back to what I was really addressing was the fact that we've had obstacle after obstacle. You can't let obstacles stop you. You find a way around it. And this is the same thing that I'm saying when it comes to dealing with our voting. Whatever they throw at us, okay, we can't stop it. We're gonna find a way around it.
Absolutely.
And keep
Let me say this. Let me say we need to kind of move on. I still want to talk about this Office of Crimes and Security here in the
That's what
state
I
of
wanna get
Florida.
to. That's exactly.
He asked lawmakers in Florida to allocate $6 million for the agency here. So, and is it whose money is he going to use for this? For these police officers.
He's using taxpayers' dollars, Jared. But be careful what you ask for. Okay, be careful what you ask for, because one of the things they found he talking about using this to prosecute people with voter fraud and all that kind of stuff. Guess what? The instances of voter fraud they found was in Florida. Okay.
Right,
and
they were all
it was on the right. It wasn't on the left. So tell him be careful what he asked for. He just may get it.
Brother Jerry, the bill I was talking about is Senate Bill 90. And DeSantis signed that bill into law. It's called Florida New Election Integrity Bill. And this bill is strengthening voters' identification, prohibiting the mass mailing of ballots, banning ballot harvesting, and prohibiting private money for administering elections in a state. That is serious.
Money, well, then he can't do that.
That's signed into law. That's Senate.
He signed into law, but then he can't get money because all money is. If he signed that into law, then he need to go put himself, lock himself up.
But understand what it said though. Look at what it said. It said prohibiting private money for the administration of elections. Okay, who administers the elections in each county?
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying.
The county government. So it means that they cannot accept dollars.
No, they are not talking about
the county cannot accept
election. That's a broad loaded term, especially if they set up this new office. They know why I'm gonna raise some money to get a supervisor of election. That they know that ain't what the money for. We you know what I'm saying? When you take a deeper dive in that Senate Bill 90, it's saying that you better be careful if people are sending in private money for the administration to help get somebody elected to office.
No, it's saying administrative of the election.
Private money from administering elections.
Right.
Elections. But that's not the supervisor election office. In my opinion, I'm not an attorney. But I think somebody ought to take a look to see exactly what.
Yeah, but that's what it says administrative.
Meant by that. I said if you march now, they don't pass this. So if one person start fighting in that march, it's like you are writing and they can lock everybody up for being in a protest. Those laws that they are writing to incriminate and to criminalize people of color when you do this. Now, if you remember they blocked the bridge in Miami because they wanted support for Cuba, the sheriff didn't even go down there and mess with them. But you let that been Black Lives Matter block a bridge.
Let
Now,
me get this through. It says also, we're going to talk about the Individual Freedom Bill, which is Senate Bill 148. What someone wrote, which should really be called the Sad White People Bill. It seeks to bar public school or workplace from making people feel discomfort or guilty about their race during lessons or training focused on inequity. Meaning that they're not going, you can't teach anything that happened to you, but you got to learn about them. Although we live these issues every day that people heap up on us, but they can't read about what they have heaped up on us.
No, they can't.
And this is what they are adding and calling it critical race theory, when they are the one want to critically influence our children and influence everybody else by, telling people, white people don't, we can't hurt your feelings, because you might sympathize with those people if we hurt your feeling, if you know what's going on. Go ahead, Gro.
That's my case.
And what it does basically, it is rewriting history, because basically they're limiting the instruction to whatever approved text, whatever approved curriculum materials that they have. And so if they have a text that says, speaks like some of the others that are out there, that the slaves were happy and jovial and were treated well, then that's the limit of what they can teach in the classroom. So that bill, it's an irate bill, and it's a bill once of all to change the narrative, to change history, to put history into to make it seem like history will be well, but once again that African American contributions were limited when that has not been the case. But my answer to it, where else can, my answer to this is to ask to the Black community, where else can this history be taught? And then making sure
telling me about doing this kind of thing.
One we talked about the election police, right? What are they now? They're talking about putting cameras in. The election police is the one that's going to be out there, making sure, intimidating people that go to the poll. That's what this is for. The Office of Election of Crimes and Security is the election police. They're going to have police, in the election places, trying to intimidate you or to intimidate people to turn around and not even bother to vote. This is what this is about. And go use our money to intimidate us with, that's $6 million.
Jerry,
our money.
And all of this voter fraud and everything, it appears that the only people almost to a person that's going to end up getting in trouble over this are those conservative. Now notice what just happened in Georgia. They just the state attorney has asked for a special prosecutor, a criminal grand jury to look into Donald Trump and all those folk who came to Georgia with Donald Trump on the line saying, I want you to find me 11,780 votes. That's, if ever, stealing votes is what Donald Trump is doing, and it's on TV, on radio. They got it. So now what's going to happen? As Burnham said, you done created a law that's going to put a noose around your own neck. So they keep making these laws. But when I was growing up, my mother used to say, son, when you get in the ditch digging business, make sure you dig 2 ditches.
They are making laws, and they always make laws. There are inquiries. They are always are inquiries. But those laws don't apply toward those folks. They inquire, but when you are policing yourself, you have nothing to worry about. Those laws are put in place for you and I. These are those good folk that y'all keep on telling me about.
And they also talking about putting cameras on teachers in school to make sure they don't even teach the history, the true history of what took place here in America and took place with us. You know, these people, you know, this dictator, you got to call DeSantis who he is. He's setting up a dictatorship here in the state of Florida, which he want to take nationally.
Yes.
And it's silence from the Democrat Party here, is silence from the Republican Party, and it's silence from the leadership of in the, you know, both church, in the church, especially the white church. They are not saying a word about this because
Nothing.
they think it's not going to affect them. They think that voting is not going to affect them. That, you know, if you're going to send out ballots, it's not going to affect them. That's what they believe, but they're wrong, because when you ask for a ballot, nobody know who you are. You know,
Jerry, do you know who used absentee ballot more than anybody else until the election of 2020?
Yeah,
Republicans?
yeah,
Conservative elderly Republicans.
right.
And when black folk found out about it, that's like anything else.
They
As
changed the
long
rules.
as they are getting it, is fine. When we catch wind of, listen, we can do that. You can? Yeah, we can. Well, let's do it. Then all of a sudden it's bad. Trump said that's bad. If you vote through the ballot, that's bad. But he really hurt his own folk.
You
That's
got
why
him
they
down,
didn't
Pat,
get
brother.
it
You
right.
got him down. You got him down.
Okay, let's go to the next one. The Stop Woke Act. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' newest anti-woke legislation would bar schools and private business from making students or employees feel guilty of any form of psychological stress because of their national origin, sex, or race. Specifically, the bill would outlaw teaching that certain individuals are inherent races or sexes or more superior, or that characterize an individual status as privileged or oppressive based on their race, sex, or national origin. So you can't tell a person they're oppressing you. You can't tell somebody that they, you know, this is the act that he's putting in place in the state of Florida. So, you know, we were doing some reading today about in the state of Florida how that you was allowed to be beat and everything else, you know, with the black codes and all of that. Florida has always been a brutal place to black people, but you know, people have gotten some kind of way to believe that it wasn't, but it is, and it's
That's
still
right.
that way.
That's
You
right.
know, but I just want to know how y'all feel about this Stop Woke Act. We talked about it before, but here's all the legislation. This is the legislation that they're putting out there. And if you know, we talked about voting and all of that. Where if they put people in place that can overturn your vote, that's going to be devastating. That's going to be that means that you're going to have to get those 90 million whites and Hispanics and blacks that have never voted in an election. You're going to have to get every one of them. The election would have to be so overwhelming that they couldn't overturn it. But this is where we are headed right now. And this is the slow creeping of ending democracy in the country. And you know, and this is what he wants to take nationally. He intend to run for president. He intend to take this nationally, all this stuff that we are talking about tonight. And this is the governor of the state of Florida right now, setting up autocratic form of government. Y'all opinion.
Well, all the thing we got to do, Jerry, is I would say, is that we have to take some actions here. Okay, the action is that we're gonna have to just vote his ass out. Okay, just vote him out and put people in, and that's why the voting process is so important. It's so important. I wish folks would do like when we had the issues back in the 50s and the 60s, when I graduated, my daddy was one of the few people in my community that could vote back in the day, right? But when they passed these laws back in the 50s, my dad made sure that every child that he had 10 children, okay? He had 10 children. And once they was able to turn 18 years old, he made absolutely sure that every one of his kids signed up to vote, and he ensured that we all voted. And so, like I always say, the journey of 1,000 miles, okay, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step and the first mile. And that's what we're gonna have to do. We can talk all we want to about what can do and what we should do, but we're gonna have to start acting on some of this. We got to start some action, and the action has to start with us. Okay, it has to start local. We can't wait on Kamala Harris. We can't wait on Joe Biden to try to do something nationally. If everybody take it upon themselves in their own community, and let's start enrolling people to vote, and because that's the key to the whole thing is voting. And that's why they passing these laws to keep you from voting, because they understand the power to vote. They understand that. That's why they redistricting us out of it, because Black people is a critical voting block, if you will. Now, I can't say that when we were talking earlier about the good white people. Now, I want you to understand that I think so, because Barack Obama would have never became president of the United States if it had not for what I call a lot of these good white people. Now, I think one of the things that he done, and I think we have to go back to, that he tapped into, just like Trump did. What he tapped into was social media, and he tapped into it earlier. He began to get these young people involved and organized and voted, and he was able to reach, across the board, Black, white, and all across the board. And he was able to get himself elected president twice, not once but twice. And so there's a lot of power in this ballot, and that's what we're gonna have to start. I believe we're gonna have to start at home individually and get at one vote at a time, if you will, in our community. We can change it. I don't care what DeSantis says or insanity. I don't call it DeSantis. I call him insanity. I don't care what he says and what he put out, no laws, what he put out. Now, those things the will of the people can defeat the evil of his administration. I believe that's my thought.
Well, we have to also recognize, Vernon, and the majority of whites have never voted for this, since I think maybe been way past, way to maybe 75, that the majority of whites have not voted Democratic in a long time. President Obama won, I think, 44% of the white vote in his first run. It dropped down in his second run to around 30-some%. And the majority of the people that voted for him in that second time around were like 90. I think the Black vote was up around 96% that voted for him. And then he got 70-some% of the Hispanic vote, and he got close to, if I'm right, 70-some% of the Asian vote. But it was only 30% that voted for him and 40% the first time. So and then you look at this last election. I think it was almost 60. It was 60-some% that went to Donald Trump of white voters.
I'm not almost trying to say that
74 million voted for him. Registered voters. Go ahead, Bill.
I'm not almost trying to say that how a person votes determine whether they're good or bad, but 44% speaks to the only point that I was making, is that the panel was saying that the majority are, and that's where I just beg to differ. I know that there are genuine good folk on the other side of goodwill that stands with us for sure, but I just cannot buy the majority are good folks. I cannot accept that.
I think, Jerry, I think we shouldn't convolute the fact that when you said 40% of white 40% of white is 3 times more than all the blacks. You
Yeah,
understand?
bro.
40%, they make up 79% of the population. So you multiply 40 times 79 versus 60 times 13, you're gonna get a whole lot more of white people voting for blacks for him than us. A whole lot more, maybe 10 times more. So we can't convolute, we can't just act like it's just a few people. Although they got a lot over there. Yeah, we got all these other different groups that's going to help bring us up to the 44, to the 47, to the 48. Because blacks right now, we're number 3. Is the Hispanic is more Hispanic than blacks now.
That's what they claim.
So we have to understand.
They've always made us less than that, Doc. I ain't falling for that crap. I ain't falling for that. I'm saying I believe it's around 60 million black folks in the country. They'll tell you, but they've always done that. If you look at the map of Africa, you see Africa as a little old continent where, and people would think of it as a little state. You can set America, China, and Russia inside Africa. But but that's always been the case, that they made us less than, and they want us to believe that. Because because we are the only one really demand resources and don't get them.
Right.
If
it's 60 million us and only 50% of black people are voting, right? Only 50%. And I understand Donald Trump got a good chunk of them. Y'all might not know it. Donald Trump got a good chunk of black votes in this last election. You all might not know.
Yeah, I know. I know he did.
He got a good chunk. I think Trump got maybe 12 or 14. Trump got a good little chunk. I need to go back and research that. But think about that now. So whenever one vote is for Donald Trump, it neutralizes that one vote that we had. So all of that neutralizes. So that brings it, let's say he got 12%. So 12% of the 30. So we really didn't get him but 18%.
That's what I'm saying. But that was 18% of the registered voter. I was talking about black people overall. Overall, not the registered voters, but overall. They keep saying, "Oh, y'all number 2, you moving on down to number 3." Well, if you stop murdering us and stop putting us in prison, for no reason that everybody else go home for,
we would have more children. All the guys in prison, but you know what? Them guys getting them children before they go to jail. Because I had one guy when I was a chaplain, he came off, he had 19 children.
Tyson, go ahead.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man. I was just saying that Barack and the guys he worked with to get elected, they didn't waste no time talking about who liked who and all that. They didn't spend a lot of time on who likes who and that sort of thing. They were scientists. They were scientists in what they were about. They were scientific about it. And in fact, Hillary could have won if she had listened to him. But she didn't recruit that team that Barack had that enabled him to win those elections. They were about the science of winning. They were about the mechanics of it. About this thing about voting and 50% and so forth. We got to make the sale. We all of us that's talking here tonight are in some form of business, and we know the importance of selling. You can't just walk out there with your product and expect people going to buy it. You got to make a sale. So that's how we get our people to vote. People want to know, well, what's in it for me? And they want to know on an individual level. They don't want the science and the politics that we talk about on these shows. They want to know what is the meat and grits of why I should vote. And that's the sale that we got to make.
Right. And that's why we were saying that the Democrat Party hadn't messaged itself properly. Yeah. And they should have just a circle of people whenever something come up, like what Mitch McConnell said. You run that as an ad. Joe Biden asked the other day, what do the Republican Party believe in? That should have been an ad, out there. What will they vote for? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no message out there, and the urgency don't seem to be affecting them the way it should.
Yeah, well, I'm speaking more also, Jerry, to what Vernon was saying about, and like we always say, all politics is local. I was speaking in terms of getting that local person that has not voted or is not voting to get them motivated to get to the polls. That's pretty much more what I'm talking about when I'm talking about making a sale. I'm talking about how to get those people that are not voting in Pensacola and in Missouri and in Pritchard and in Milton, etc. You know, they want to know they want to spread out on the table so they can see it. What's in it for me? And that's just human nature. So I'm also talking about that, and rather than what you're saying is true though about the Democratic Party. But I'm speaking more in terms of that person that is apathetic about the whole process.
I got a question. I got a question for our brother. Okay, what would you tell them you think would get them to the poll? Just offhand, have you thought about it? What would you tell them?
Well, it's just like this is probably kind of a cold metaphor, but it's just like dealing with a child in your house. You don't have to bottle that child if you know what it is that child wants. If you know what that child wants and you control it, then you can get that child to any problem.
I like that. We need to go out and find out what they want, and then
are interested and sensitive to this process. We need to know what it is that our people want.
Yeah.
Once we find out what it is that they want, then we show them how they connect to the voting process.
Yeah, I like that.
How they get that through voting.
I like that.
All right, Heise.
Okay, Doc. Thank you for the question too.
All right.
Okay.
Well, believe it or not, modern election politics does just that.
Yeah.
You know, with algorithms, with the information that's metadata that's coming off of off social media, coming off of emails, coming off of reactions, it captures all that data. And so basically they analyze it, they scientifically go at it in the same way that we live in this consumerist economy, which tells you what you want, and what you want to buy. And
exactly.
So, and that's some of the same thing that political scientists, express. That's what they go off of. And that's what these market specialists, these data markets analysts, that's the kind of information that they pull. So what has happened, that part of campaigning, it goes on often. It goes on often. And sometimes we don't see certain things from our viewpoint. We don't see certain things happening because they've chosen to put their energies in a particular market that's going to produce more for them. For instance, there are certain ads that are running now, against different issues in the state legislature, but you'll notice that they may not be running here. But you'll go down to South Florida, certain areas of South Florida, and you'll see those because they know that there are critical areas that they can get reaction for, and that they can make an impetus upon their elected officials. So it's being able to analyze. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this now. It's not just based on feelings. It's based on data, collecting, identifying the metrics and collecting that data, synthesizing it, and put it all together. Believe it or not, artificial intelligence is used to predict. It's just that serious to predict outcomes. And even with the polling data, that's why many of the polls can help predict what's going to be the outcome because of the information that they gather and they put it into it. But it's scientific. It's totally scientific, just like the same ads you receive, while you are on a website, because it's grabbing your data, it's grabbing your information.
But still, what I'm saying is, there, I know that there are places where they run ads where they looking at the demographics and all of that and how people vote and all that, but we ain't looking to improve, to expand that vote. I think they do a disservice to themselves by not expanding the vote, because if you don't expand that vote, I've been recording my shit. If you don't extend the vote, you're going to continue to lose with all this voter suppression going on because people are not hearing what you are doing. I mean, you know, like all the stuff that Joe Biden has did over the last year, it's not being messaged to the people. And you're not talking about just the messaging to Democrats. You're talking about messaging to the nation now. All of the things that are done, that you've done over the first year, you know, through the CARES Act and all of the other things that has been done. Of course, there was, you know, 3 failures that we looked at because we see it as directly affecting us. But there are some things like the infrastructure bill, like other things that he has done through the CARES Act, and you know, that if they'd have messaged this thing right, I think the Build Back Better bill would have passed, and voting rights. But we said from early on that the Voting Rights Act should have been on the first thing on the docket, because that's how you keep power after you gain power. Because if people see that you are for them, they're gonna be for you. So the first thing that we said when he was there, that you only had a year to get this done. The second year, after February, everybody's running for office. They're not going to be in office. So when the speaker, not the speaker, but the Senate majority leader put the bill on the floor the other day, we were like, okay, you know, you're going to put it on the floor. You'll see who's going to vote for it, but it's not going to really help because the people already made up their mind, and there's no pressure to make them do anything. The infrastructure bill, when they divided it from the Build Back Better bill, there was no pressure on them anymore to do anything. So that's my concern, that we haven't, you know, the Democrat Party hadn't messaged even the things that they have done, so they could have gotten more.
One of the things, so Jerry, I think with what Chuck Schumer did, I kind of agree with Chuck Schumer. What he did was that because they knew, I believe they felt like they knew that they didn't have a chance to get the bill passed. But one of the things that he did, I think he strategically made that vote happen to put the talk is cheap. Okay, talk is cheap. Got action speak louder than words. So when he put it on there and he forced those folks to vote, and like Sinema and Manchin and so forth. And you see what happened to Sinema after they vote. Now the Democratic Party, they went and censured her for not voting with the Democrats. So some action has to be now. Had they not done that, well, nothing would have been done. They just still been talking, no vote, but just a lot of talk. So I think people, and I was listening to an interview just yesterday. Now her chances of being reelected from a Democratic point of view is done. You know, she's not going to. The only way she's going to be able to be reelected is that she's going to have to run independent, because they're going to run her. She better enjoy these other remaining years in the Senate here, okay? Because as far as the Democratic Party is concerned, she is doomed.
Yeah,
and those are the few actions that we can take, and that's as a result of forcing a vote on it, so we can see how these people really feel and how to vote. The other thing is that they got to get away with Manchin as well, because his day is coming.
Yeah, Chris Hendricks on our live Facebook stream weighs in with, we are in Republican territory. We're going to get the bad side of the scale through media here unless there is media to help convey that message to the population they serve. We said that earlier in the show, I think.
But also, let me say this. You know, when you are not in that Washington circle, or you don't have your hands and your ears with connections in that Washington, D.C. circle, it's hard to understand. It's hard to know what's going on. And that's why many will say that D.C. politics, you know, when you're getting a story from the media, you won't really know the true strategy behind deals. Because you'll be surprised, you know, a deal is started, you know, might have started 3 years ago and might not come to fruition in this session or the next session. So there's a lot going on. And oftentimes we're not privy, we don't know. I have some opportunities where I get to meet with different lobbyists I have one particular friend who's a lobbyist, and she lobbies for both sides. Basically, one side uses her because of the fact that she can get a message to the other side. And so it's amazing, what you'll hear, what you'll find out, and what you'll know. But I'm saying any type of politics that we do, any type of strategies that we come up with, we got to be strategic. We got to know that getting the message out to those who need to hear the message. And now we're at a place where we can target messages. It used to be that you just, during the civil rights period, they just did, broadcast. They just did a big broadcast. But now messages are targeted. You may not see a message because they know where you stand. They don't have to worry about getting you the message, but they may be sending someone else that needs to hear that message. They may be the ones that need to hear it. So, when it comes back and bringing this back down to local strategy, number one is getting people to understand the importance of voting, but then getting people to understand in these neoliberal times the importance of policy. Because if you're not aware of policy, and then you're not involved in the shaping of policy, then it don't matter who you vote for.
Right.
You still got to be involved on the policy issues.
Going back to these different bills here in the state of Florida, I get it. It says, in some states, the code, which is the Black Code, permitted capital punishment against Black people for minor crimes like petty theft, allowing whipping for vagrancy and swearing, and banning Black land ownership. Florida, particular, harsh codes allowed white people to beat Black workers for disrespect. Historian Gerald H. Schofield wrote in the 1976 essay on the state racist laws. So, I'm still concerned about what's going on here in the state of Florida, because they, with a governor being as bold as he is, and to say what he has said, and to be putting into legislation what is being put in, this can be very damaging to the life of Black people here, because what they're going to do, they're going to start catching people one by one. They're already doing it. You can go to a store now and somebody asks you, where you going? Where are you from? Like you need a passcode. And we see it all the time on social media. These people are going crazy. So we have to, and I'm saying that in the state of Florida, there's silence. And one of the things Desmond Tutu said, he said, the foot of the elephant is on the mouse. And nobody's saying anything. The mouse is not going to thank you for your neutrality. So, the elephant foot is on our neck right now. And he's trying to move, he's trying to squeeze more and more in, voter suppression, bringing about voter suppression, voter intimidation through his own police force. Now we have a police force, we have state trooper, we have city police, we have county police, sheriffs and all of that. Why do we need another $6 million worth of election polices? Why do we need that? Can somebody tell me?
We don't need it, Jerry. We don't need it. It's just it's all politically motivated. It's a form of intimidation. It's just something we don't need, and we have to find out a way of stopping stuff like that. That's just it. He's in power. That's why, if people don't understand the power of voting, that is why we need to vote. Okay, y'all remember who Ron Sanders run against? He almost lost. Okay, so if it had just enough voting power, we wouldn't have to deal with this insanity. Okay, and so people in power got the power and the control to do what they want to while they're in power. But we have to find a way of finding some civil disobedience and try to overcome this craziness that he's doing, or vote him out so we can change his policies or do something. That's what we're always talking about the power of the vote. If nobody understands the power of your one vote, that they need to go back and talk to somebody, because your vote is so important. Your vote, along with many, many other people's vote, voting controls everything in this country. From like you said, from money to material, everything. That's why some people that not political astute don't understand the power of voting. I hear a lot of folks and some of the young folks that what, like you said, what have I got to vote for? I'm not voting, but they're gonna do what they want to do. No, that's not necessarily true. You surely, if you don't vote, most definitely is true. But if you do vote, you have a chance. That's your only weapon against some evil. So please encourage folks to vote.
As preposterous as the legislations and the bill that DeSantis is putting forth here, Jerry mentioned that how deafening silent it is here in the state of Florida. But we have to remember that that is the blueprint for what his national campaign will run on, the things that he did in Florida. So I think that there are more Floridas out there that will gravitate to DeSantis. It's a great number of Americans that believe in everything that DeSantis is doing in the red states across this country. And he is the front runner, I'm thinking, at this point for the White House. He and the former guy that was in the White House, they're at odds now because he will not endorse that former guy. And so it's up in the air. But yeah, we've got to understand, I'm with Vern, the power of the vote. Now, Amendment 4 was quite disheartening right here in the great state of Florida when we did turn out. We have young folk asking, why should I vote? And then they point us back to Amendment 4, but we cannot be dismayed. We have to keep on fighting the good fight, as Brother Grover said, and keep looking and pressing toward the prize.
You know what? But we've like it's been said before, we've been through this before, but we shouldn't have to go through this. We are the only group of people in the country that has to have our voting rights renewed every 10 years. Every 10 years, we got to have a voting rights renewed. Now, we've been here, as I said before, longer than most and all the people that came here after. You know, we were here before the Mayflower. We was here before the slave ships. We was already here. But the thing about it, we just don't know it. And this is what they don't want you to know, that there were Black people trading back and forth and going to China and other places, you know, building ships way before these people ever hit the seas. But they want you to not teach who we are, what we have done, the inventions that this country didn't bring slaves here. It brought engineers, it brought teachers, it brought all kinds of farmers, it brought all kinds of people here that had already built civilization way before all these other people came out that hit the sea.
Hey, Jerry, that goes back to what you're talking about. You know, I'm glad you brought that up about why we have to renew the civil rights bill and so forth. And that's the thing that McConnell was basically talking about, I guess, because you would think that when why is it that people of color have to have an amendment to a civil rights bill or the 15th Amendment, or whatever the 14th, 15th Amendment, when the Constitution gave everybody the right to vote, but because of us, that's some special things we have to do. But it don't apply to white people. I just do not understand that. If we're American citizens just like white people, then whatever apply to them apply to us, and whatever apply to us apply to them. When you think so, why would you write? So what Mitch McConnell is saying, well, because you people, quote, I'm just euphemism now, quote, you people vote like Americans, trying to vote like Americans, and maybe he's on to something, because nobody else has to renew their voting rights. Why is it? How? Somebody explain to me, why is that? Why, you know, I just come back. I just want to make a point about why Black people are treated so differently in this world. You know, being in business, one of the things that I found that is just so discriminating. I won't participate in it. You know, like being a certified minority business, okay? We have to certify. I'm just getting off the track, but don't come back. We have to, because we're being treated differently. That's wrong. We have to put in paperwork. We have to file papers and our bank accounts and all this kind of stuff to be, quote, certified as a Black business. Hell, I've been Black all of my life. Only thing I should need to do is show my ID, show that I'm Black. But yet we have to, in order to do business in this country, we have to show that we are certified minority business. And still, when you go through all those hoops, you still don't get the business. And so I refuse to participate in that crap. White people, white businesses in this country don't have to do that. So why do we have to do it? It's the same logic applies to voting. We have to go do some special dispensation to exercise our right. That is discriminatory in its own right. So that's something that should be done about that. I just do not agree with that logic.
One of the things Chris Hendricks said, yeah, we have to vote, but we have to make a first-class citizen group economics. What do y'all think about? I know that's definitely true, because what we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to pool our resources. We're gonna have to come to the realization that one day we're gonna have to pool our resources so that we have something to fight with. I've always said, and I believe this to the day I leave here, one, we need a national legal defense fund where every city and every state can pull down from, that everybody in that city or state put at least $1 in. That would garner us millions of dollars over the years, you know, something that we can have to fight with in every city and state. Then we need economics, something that we can put our money into for future generations, not just for ourselves now, but something that the generation after us will enjoy, or even maybe we may be able to enjoy. But we need to pool our resources and make something happen. This is why I know Vernon, you got the TV station. This is why we're doing what we do, because we want to inform people unedited, if you will, somebody else having a say in what we can say and what we can't say. But this is why we do what we do.
Yeah, brother Joseph Glover on the Facebook stream weighs in on the importance of the vote. If our vote wasn't important, why would they try everything within their power to stop us from exercising that right? Great point there. And so Shirley Baker says, everybody that hasn't watched the Will Smith movie on Netflix, amend if they would take a viewing to that. Will Smith, amend. Shirley Baker, North Carolina.
Great. And I got to check that out. I haven't seen it myself. Amendment on Netflix. But those are some of the things that I think we're gonna have to do. What's your thought, Grove?
Being able to come together is a priority. Being able to sit down and have conversations like this, not necessarily on TV, on Zoom, but in front of each other, is important. And because for those who say the Black community can't come together, I'm like Dr. John Henry Clarke. There's no reason why we can't. We speak English. And so if people of all different other backgrounds, other languages can come together and sit at the United Nations, then those that speak English ought to be able to sit down and come together and to begin to hear each other out and to begin to talk and to discuss and come up with strategies. Our young people are brilliant. Our young people have a lot of great ideas. Our young people sometimes feel disconnected with the older generation. And I understand that, because, this thing is a cycle. Many of the things that they see, many of the things that they hear about, we know that it's been tried before. And just trying to get the young people to understand, hey, the old people are not trying to sit you down and push you back. We just want you to know that you can move beyond, you can go beyond, but here's a little wisdom that you need to take with you. So yes, we need unity. I don't recall in this city an opportunity where Black leadership sat down together. The last one that I know of was when Reverend B.J. Brooks, who reassumed the presidency of the NAACP, called a meeting together at the H&O restaurant and brought people from all over African Black Pensacola who came together and discussed things. When was the last time something like that happened? We can't depend upon our elected officials. Hear me out. We can't depend upon them to do everything because they're elected to serve and represent in a particular realm. And there are so many things that are occurring outside of that realm. We need to know more things about, get a clear education about economics, because there's, economics is more than just making money. Economics is also resources. It's also influence. It's also labor. It's a whole lot of things. And so we have to become more effective, more enlightened on economics. But then one of the biggest things that I'm seeing, we're not using the tools that we have. We have Vernon Watson, who has TV stations. We have WRNE, Choice 106.9. We have radio. We have broadcast. We have instruments here in our African American community that other cities do not have, and we don't utilize them to the fullest. And so that's one of the things that we have to begin to do, is to utilize what we have. And so, it's all possible. It's all possible. But I think we just need a clear understanding of where we are.
One of the things, Grover, I agree with you. Another thing that we're not using, like worked in the past, anything worked in the past probably will work again. If you notice, when Dr. King, they started in the churches, okay? The masses of the Black folks, we have to utilize our community leaders, okay? And whether you would agree with this or not, but pastors of churches in this community are leaders in their own right to their own congregations. And those leaders, those congregations, those followers, those sheepers, I call them, they will listen to their leader, okay? And we get the leaders on the same page as everybody else, and if we all are singing, just like in the choir, we all singing the same note, then we can get somewhere. But if everybody's singing different tunes, we're just going to create confusion. So I believe, along with like I said, we underutilize the media, we underutilize our own resources, and churches. I think the churches got away from the idea of bringing Black people together. And I think historically that was the only gathering place for Black folks to go to get information back in the day. And it's still as useful today as it was back then. But if we can bring pastors on board and let them speak the same language as everybody else, the people in those congregations are going to follow. It's no different than what Donald Trump's doing. He's their leader. They listen to him, and they will follow him, off of a cliff. They would not be questioning. And I have found in my experience, people in church do the same thing. Whatever pastors say, it never gets fact checked. They're going to do it, and they got a lot more power. They got a lot of power. And I think if we get the churches back into the political business, and I think it will help our cause as a community. Y'all tell me what you think.
I agree wholeheartedly.
One of the things that I've seen, that we were starting before this virus hit. We were doing a lot of strategic planning with and we were working with Dr. William and his church, and I can't think of the name of the church down there on Cervantes, Hearst Chapel. That was one of the people that we were working with. So we were working with people trying to organize and all of that to make sure that we got people to start working together. But when that virus hit, it shut down everything. All our strategic planning went out the door. All of, we was our programs that we was going that we had was working with young people, that went out the door because we just weren't gonna put people in. No, we're gonna put ourselves in that environment, not knowing the effect of it. And that was before we really got the shots became available to everybody. And I don't know what the next year gonna be like. If next year we have a better year, we can start back up to working with each other, putting some strategic plans in place to make sure that we all come together as much as possible and just leave the differences outside the door. And let's come together and work on something that's going to benefit all of us. Other than that, we all are going to be in trouble. And that's got to happen. We got to redouble our effort all across the country. And we're going to have to talk to people in other places. And we have the wherewithal to do it, to bring them on and have planning. And then we use that plan to implement in the areas where we know that it should work. So we have to do that. But I want to move on because there's another bill here. And this is happening not only in Florida, but around the country, in Texas as well. It's called the Parents' Bill of Rights, and it's called Making Vaccine Mandate Unlawful in the state, along with masking. So it's most of the pharmaceuticals that have partners with the federal government to distribute the COVID vaccine will participate in the mass program where the major pharmacy chain. But here's a man that's making laws that you can't mandate in your school to have people or your businesses to wear masks. What are y'all what are you thinking about that?
The irony for me with DeSantis and those who support him, they're big on states' rights. They're big on each level of government having the freedom to be able to govern themselves. But yet you see him imposing on a statewide level mandates to these governments, to these local, to the municipal, to the counties. He's mandating things that will make them do stuff, mainly because he's looking for higher aspirations. In other words, he's big on freedom. He says he's big for states to have freedom, but yet and still he comes back and he claps that freedom by coming in and putting these mandates, because it's the local governments, you would think, who knows what best for their particular local needs. So I think it's ironic.
Dr. William?
I think what's so sad about this whole COVID-19 episode is that I did a little research, and there are countries like Island of Samoa. They haven't had one death from COVID. Little small country like that. And here we are, the greatest, most powerful, got the brightest, the best scientists and your virologists and urologists and doctors. And we got more death in the United States than any other country in the entire world. We make up 1/5 of all the death. We're not talking about all the carnage from being in the hospital, with long haulers, and all the suffering that our young people are encountering mentally, physically, as well as psychological and spiritually. And we got these so-called leaders who think the fight is political and all these people are suffering. It very much like in the Bible days, in the book of Judges, at the last verse in the last chapter of the book of Judges, it said, in those days there were no king, and everyone did that which seemed right in his own eyes. Everybody around here will not follow leadership anymore. Everybody trying to do what's right politically for them instead of the greater good. And we this argument that we're talking about Maxine and it's just stupidity. We know that if this is an enemy, we should all come together and fight collectively for our neighbor so that we can all come out. But we won't. No matter what happened, you're gonna get a lawsuit. No matter what you're gonna get somebody telling me I got it right. I got it right. Listen, it's just nonsense. And we're trying to make sense out of nonsense. And it's very challenging.
One of the
Go ahead, Bill.
one of the adjectives that you used to describe America was the greatest, and the stats that you spoke of, I think, spoke to the fact that we probably aren't as great as we think we are.
Amen.
Let me
I mean, great as in world with military and wealth and
But the knowledge, if we don't utilize the knowledge, that, I mean, who cares how powerful we are when the leader of the free world tells Putin, okay, as long as you just invade a little bit, we won't.
But let me ask you this. Do you believe that the president need to declare a national medical emergency and invoke the Defense Protection Act? And do you think that would suffice? Do you think he can do it? I know the Supreme Court has sided with really with businesses in the country. So I think the president should invoke that, invoke a medical emergency in the country. And
the moment he does that, Brother Jerry, they're going to file a lawsuit in these conservative states. And then you're going to have a conservative judge in the federal court system going to put it on hold. So now you go through this long, drawn out process again. People really don't know what to do. You know, it's just crazy that I think your suggestion is a wonderful idea, but he can't implement it.
Yeah.
Or it's going to take him 6 months. 6 months from now, how many lives we have lost? How much more suffering we have endured and encountered because we won't come together. People just, whatever it takes, it's really all about power. The people out of power want power, and whatever they can do to get that power, they're going to do it. And so no matter who come and advise Biden or what he's saying, they every word he say is being under a microscope. How come they didn't put Trump words on the microscope when that joker said so much vile and vicious stuff? But now whatever he said, and Trump said, fake news.
I think the court spoke loud and clear when they voted down that vaccine mandate. So I mean, his hands are tied anyway. He dies. It's state law.
Absolutely.
I tell you, it's all a force when it comes to the safety, national safety.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say is, people are dying anyway. You know, I'm one believing if I got that kind of power, I'm gonna use that power, and then they're gonna have to stop me. Because
they will. They got no problem stopping you, Berger.
Yeah, I know, but the people will know that you are fighting for their life.
Good
because
point.
These other people like DeSantis, Abbott, and all of them, they are putting people's life in jeopardy. They are forcing people back into an environment that's killing people. It's since June of last year. What we got? 140-some thousand people have died. I think it's 860 some.
We closed.
889,000 people are dead from COVID. That's not including all the other people that die from all the other incidents of car accident, heart attacks, and stroke. And many of these people that
Jerry, I think that probably at this point, the only thing that we can do at this point, and I agree with the others that I think the writing is on the wall about if he declared a national emergency and all that kind of stuff, the vaccine mandate. I think the court's going to eventually strike it down. That's just my opinion. If he did that, I think the only thing that we can do at this point is just try to encourage our folks, okay, our folks to go ahead and get vaccinated from an individual point of view. If those other folks don't want to get vaccinated, if they're going to take the toll, and if it might be a way of purging the country, okay, that's fine. It might be, hopefully, going to be a way of purging those right-wing voters roll in 22 and 24. You know, if those folks that adamantly against vaccine, and you see it every day, those that catch it dies. Okay, so be it. Yeah, if they want to risk their lives, and I just never understood cult-like thinking. You know, they listen to a cult leader like Donald Trump and they die as a result of it. Nobody, if you stop and think about it, look at it. Nobody, Donald Trump has suffered no consequences for his words and his actions, but everybody under him, people losing their law licenses, people losing their lives, people losing their jobs, people going to jail, everybody's suffering except him. If they can't see that, I just don't understand that. Why would you follow a fool like that? But if they not want to be vaccinated, I'm washing my hands with fine. Don't get vaccinated. Risk your life and see if you still be around in 2022 or 2024, 2026 to vote. Okay. Hopefully those folks that are vaccinated are around, and maybe it's that will purge the voters' roll as far as I'm concerned.
But Jerry, do you know what the great argument between DeSantis and Trump is right now? What it all stemmed from? It stemmed from the notion that Trump said to DeSantis, "Why won't you tell a person whether you boosted or not?" Did you know that?
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that one.
No.
I know they've been at each other's throat.
That's what started the argument. And once that started the argument, then DeSantis want to take off his little glove because he's hearing in echo chambers that people kind of want to move away from Trump and he need to start doing a power grab. And Trump people will not allow that. Trump ain't nobody without those, as Vernon said, those cult-like thinking people who will drink whatever poison he puts out there. He gonna cut DeSantis down just like he cut every one of them down before. DeSantis playing because DeSantis didn't have a chance of winning Florida. No one even know who that nut was until Trump endorsed him. When Trump endorsed him, all the Trump people got behind him. And so now Trump saying, "You ungrateful. You drunk wine with me. You drunk my liquor. And now you gonna talk to me like that." Watch before long what's going to happen between DeSantis and Trump.
Reverend, what's your thought?
Well, let me throw this out here. And I'm going to take the conversation to a higher level. Because what, we're talking about this, but we're failing to take it and categorize it. And if we put it back into an economic sphere, and let's go back two different economic cycles before, with the Keynesian model, with the Friedman model, and then neoliberalism. Those first two understood that you had to deal with your social problems, and the economy had to play a role in making sure that those social problems and social ills were dealt with. However, neoliberalism comes along and it says that if we push the market, then those other issues that are not market related will take care of themselves. So here we are, after the Reagan era, after the installation of neoliberalism, and all of a sudden in 2022, we see these problems which are social in nature, and they're out of control.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we got about 4 minutes left,
Yeah.
but want to suggest. Want to talk a little bit about Dr. William, what we are doing this Saturday on the 29th.
Thank you. This Saturday, we're going to be with Reverend John Powell at Movement for Change. What's that address, Bro Jerry?
I can't think of the address.
Downtown. You all know
Now-
where his place downtown, right there by Five Brothers, Six Sisters. I forget their names.
Five Sisters, yeah.
On Belmont and the Villas.
Come on,
Thank you,
develop,
Brother
yeah.
Brown. Thank you, Brother Brown. But listen, from 11 to 1, if you would like, we're going to be passing out those free take-home kits again to test for the virus. A lot of people are still ill, you all. I think at the end of this week, over 3,600 people died from COVID in one day. That's the highest number of deaths since the pandemic started. And for whatever reason, we are trying to move on like this pandemic is over. You still stay safe. It's not too late to vaccinate. And if you got the virus, stay home, isolate. Don't spread it because it allows for the virus to continue to mutate. So I plead with you that to stay in the fight a while longer. I think I was doing some research for the show today. I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about COVID, but I won't go into my research. But they believe that by the end of 2022, in fact, really by the end of the spring, we're going to see a different front. That's been predicted before. They didn't expect Omicron, and all it went back down into back with Trump. He said by Easter of 2020, it will be behind us. So they keep saying it's going to be behind us, but until it's behind us, we must stay in the fight.
Just to give out some, they want people to wear the N95 or the KN95 mask because they're saying that stops a lot of the droplets from Omicron. And because we know that they've already said that it's 70 times more transmittable and infectious than even the Delta variant. So we have to make sure we protect ourselves. And one of the things I know, Doc, we're going to do is go pass out masks and hand sanitizer and other things to some schools. We hadn't set a date, I don't think, for that. But that's one of the things we're going to do. And this is with Stay Safe Pensacola, Move for Change, the city of Pensacola, along with Mayor Grover Robinson, that we are doing this work with.
Let me add this for Jerry, that Vernon, he's going to be there broadcasting for us like last time, did a magnificent, marvelous job inviting folks to come out. We ran out of kits in a couple of hours. But that's what we want. We want people to come and get them so that you can have something to help protect yourself. If you ill early on, they got a lot of little concoctions now with NyQuil to zinc to all that. When you get it, somebody gonna tell you what you can do to try to keep from getting severely ill. So come and test. If you wake up with a sore throat, you wake up with a headache, you wake up with a dry cough, you wake up with aches in your body, you need to get tested. And then go start taking some medication to help build your immune system to get to the side so you don't end up in the emergency room, intubated and on life support and demise. That's my prayer.
Well, in the last month, 63,000 deaths in the last month. Didn't have to happen in the last month. That's what we're talking about. Nationwide, worldwide, is 5,614,270 people death worldwide. In America, 889 deaths, 189,000 deaths death that took place here in the last 2 years. We got 72 million COVID cases in America. that people that have tested positive for the COVID vaccine. I mean, for the COVID variants. So we have to protect ourselves as much as possible. I know our time is running out. Oh, let me give you the number if you want to call and get the free test. If you haven't already got it on your computer, it's the number is 1-800-232-0233. That's 1-800-232-0233. That's if you need some COVID tests. That's free from the government. Also, you go to, if you want to order online, you go to covidtest.gov. Just go to covidtest.gov and just follow the direction and they'll tell you how to get your free home testing kits.
I ordered my kits last Tuesday, bro Jerry, and they said they'll deliver mine tomorrow. So in about 6 days, you'll get them.
Yeah, and hopefully that everybody will get theirs in the next at least by next week anyway. If we the week after next, if they don't get them next week. But I imagine it's going to still take a minute for most people to get them in their hand. But on that note, y'all, I want to thank everybody for being here. I know Vern got to go. Look like Vern, you look sleepy tonight.
I got you. All right, thank y'all. We got to get out of here.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. And I want to thank everybody that was watching the show, that participated, all of the participation that took place and hitting us up on Facebook and all of that. Thank you for watching. Bill, you want to shout somebody out real quick?
Well, just Alan Young and all the people that support us. P.O. Box 1024, Cantonment, Florida 32533.
And also Lois Diane Pruitt and all of them in St. Louis and other people around the country, and the ones that's watching on the television show. We want to thank them as well. And those who watch us on our website, thank you as well. And we'll see you next week at 7:00 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern. But we also do a show on Friday. I'm going in, Burn. On Friday night at 6:30, let's talk COVID. That's all we talk about is COVID on Friday night at 6:30. Every Friday, and we will see you next Friday at 6:30 and next Sunday with community conversation at 7:00 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern. Talk at you. Good night, y'all.
Good night, everybody.